Hello and welcome. Let's use this image for learn different ways or one more way for solve this problem in the hands. In newborn photography, as you already know, this is a really common situation. You will cross with this all the time. So it is good to have different ways for different images, and more tools are always better. So in this case, we can use, instead of using channel mixer, let's do it with curves or levels. Let's start with curves. So in this case, as we can see, we have the hands with a lot of magenta. The opposite of magenta is the green. So let's see what happens if we start adding or increasing the greens. Of course, if we do not use the layer mask, we will increase the greens in all the image. Let's do something really pushy, and let me invert the layer mask pressing Command I. Now what I will do is select just a white brush and paint to get some kind of really good layer mask around here, because we want to only affect the hands. So let's do something like this, just using a brush, nothing fancy. We do not need it. But let's try to be just a little more careful. Okay, something like this maybe will work. Okay, so let me reset this. I told you this is pretty magenta, and what happens if we start adding greens is we will reach a point where we do load the saturation a lot. When you see the video of the curves and how to create colors and how the RGB colors works, this will be like pretty understandable. So instead of adding green for neutralize the magentas and end up with something gray, we want to shift the hue. Instead of muting the magenta for something gray, we will want to balance the color till we find something similar to skin in the face, for example. So maybe we will need to work adding some red, adding some yellow, and adding some light. Remember, in curves, RGB is for the light. So if we end up in something like here, now we need to start working with the saturation, because this is obviously too saturated and too yellow. So now, if we remember, we said with the magentas, we can play with the green curve. If we need to move more to the yellows, we will add more green, and if we want something more reddish or magenta, we will remove the greens. So maybe we will end up in something like maybe here. And now we can start working differently, because we already have kind of a similar color. But as you can see, we do have some pretty difference in the saturation. So for working this, what we will do is grab a vibrance and saturation adjustment layer. Let me decrease a lot, and let me invert this layer mask and select a white brush. What I will do now is just paint in the areas where I see with my eyes that the saturation is too high. That's pretty much all. When I do match the saturation, we should be kind of okay. Of course, we can be more precise with the curve till we find a perfect color match. And also have in mind, we maybe need more only one curve, because, for example, this right hand could be different in color than the left hand. And in fact, in here, as you can see, we have a really grayish area that we should add the color or increase the color in some parts. So for this, it is a good decision to use more than only one adjustment layer, because we cannot do everything in only one layer. This is pretty common to need more than one. For example, if I want to increase the color in this grayish area, what I will do in this case is I will create another curve. I will increase a little bit the luminosity, and I will remove greens for add magenta, and I will remove blues for add more yellow. Let me increase a little more the light, and also let me invert this layer mask. I will again grab just the regular brush, and I will paint in here. How much? Till I see the color match, or at least we do have some color. Then we will do the fine tuning with the curve, because maybe the color is too yellow or too red. In this case, it's too yellow, so we will grab the curve and we will increase a little more the magentas. Maybe something around here. Why not? So this is one way doing it with curves. And let's see now how we can do it with levels. To match. Okay, the idea is you understand the concept and then you play to find the perfect color yourself. Otherwise, this will be kind of boring for you. This is with curves. Let's do something similar, but in this case, let's use the levels. Again, let's change this from RGB to the greens, and it's pretty much the similar. Let's take a look what happens if I do add greens. This starts becoming more yellowish. Instead of doing the layer mask again, let me recycle this layer mask. I did all the option or alt click, key, and then drag and drop. This will help you to copy and paste a layer mask. So if I go to the greens and I start adding greens, we will see at one point we will end up with something like really grayish or muted. So instead of grabbing the greens, maybe we can start in this case with the blues and remove some blues. If we start removing blues, we also start removing luminosity because this is in normal blend mode. Let me compensate adding some light. Let me maybe this a little more, make this a little more magenta. And let's see if we need to, for example, remove some portion of the reds, just some portion. But the process is exactly the same than the curves. As you can see, we can do it with different tools. And also there is no one only way to do it with curves. You can, instead of going up with the red channel, decreasing the other two, you can do the opposite and you will end up with the exactly same result. So there is not only one recipe for the same color. That is the good part of the curves as well. If you kind of understand what you're doing, you have plenty of ways for reach the point. In this case, we are oversaturated a lot of the areas. I will not worry for the moment because what I want to show you is how you can handle this. Let me again create a vibrance adjustment layer. I will decrease the saturation and the vibrance. In this case, let me decrease more the saturation than the vibrance. In fact, I will increase the saturation. Let me invert the layer mask and I will paint with brush in the layer mask. Again, all I want is make the saturation looks more similar to the other parts of the skin, so we can have something more natural, blended, or similar. I kind of overdone a few parts of the hands. It's kind of too grayish. I'm sorry. So let's use this like a good starting point. I don't care it is not a really good starting point, but for this purpose, it's even better because this will help me to show you more things. So let's assume we have these hands instead of the original hands, which are these. This is with levels. Well, levels plus the vibrance. So we have this. And we kind of want to make this more similar to the skin. in the face. So we need to increase a little more the saturation of one of the hands, and we kind of need to decrease the luminosity. So for this, we can, for example, start decreasing the luminosity, and when we decrease the light, we see the color is also affected. So sometimes it's a really good idea first change the luminosity and then make the color correction, because you will end up correcting the things twice if you do first the color and then the luminosity. If we change, forget about this hand for the moment, let's focus on this one. If we change the luminosity, now we can see this color. It's pretty much similar to the color in the face, but we do have some pretty grayish area in here. So if you want to go really quick, one way you can do is in an empty layer, you can change the blend mode from normal to color. Use the brush and select the skin tone you want and paint in the areas you want to add the color. Be careful with this. I know it is faster than the curves. It is a lot faster than the curves, but it's kind of Photoshoppy or cheap. I don't know how to say it in a way that it doesn't sound like offensive, but it will be pretty evident or visible that is painted. So be careful. If it's an area of the image that will not have a lot of attention, maybe you can do it in this way and you will be fine. But if it's in a part of the image that will be pretty visible or the eyes will go there like all the time, take your time and be sure you didn't do anything like pretty obvious. Let me also decrease the luminosity of the right hand, or well, it's the left hand, but in the image it's the right side. So we can take a look and see if we need to work a little more in this or if we can live with these imperfections. Let me decrease a little more the luminosity in this right hand, inverting the layer mask. By the way, if you take a look to the shortcuts video, you will see I create myself, or for me, a shortcut for the curves. In my case, I press Command Alt Shift plus C. So I have this new layer thing. I press Enter and I end up with a curves adjustment layer. This was with, wow, curves 2. I don't know how to say, because it's kind of, we start from this point, which is only levels, but we reach a point where we kind of didn't like it because it's too bright and too pitch, the color. I don't know, it's kind of ugly. So we work out a little more the luminosity. In fact, now I see this a little too much underexposed. Exposed. Let me be more. Something like this is okay. It is kind of the same work if you need to work with these oversaturated reds in here. You will end up doing something similar, but maybe with more precision in the layer mask because it's in the middle of the face. And if you do what I have done in here with the layer mask, it will look weird, at least weird. So I hope you can now incorporate a different way for work with dead hands or blue hands or very red hands. Depending the case, will be really red or, like in this case, really blue, magenta. This is the before and this is the after. When the hands are in like sharpen, focus, it is kind of easier. For me, when it's like this, blurred, is more, I don't know how to say it, but not more difficult, but kind of I never end up happy with the result or the color. I always want to add more highlights or increase the shadows Maybe it's just me. Don't worry. Um, okay, I think for now is all. I hope you can learn one or two new ways for work on this, and you can understand more in deep the concepts of paying attention of the color you have in the screen and the way you need to shift the color instead of killing all the colors and then starting from gray. Remember, do not mute the color. Be sure you shift the hue to a color you can use. And also remember, sometimes it's smarter to work first the luminosity and then shift the colors, because when you shift the light or you correct the light, you also have a different perception of the color and it's more straightforward. When you have corrected the light, you will see the way you need to go. Well, see you in the next video. Bye bye.